Oh, hi! I am so glad to see you here today. Okay, so a lot of you are going, oh, where have you been, man? It's been a few weeks. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was laying down and my dogs were play fighting, and one of them was laying on top of me, the other one was going nuts, and I got smacked in the eye, and they ended up scratching my cornea. So for a little while there, I couldn't read or do anything really. I had no sight out of this eye. It was really bad. Um, but I'm all better now, for the most part. Um, well, also, I went out and acquired a new Bible. And a lot of you are probably thinking, a new Bible? Goodness gracious, how many Bibles are you going to have? No one can have too many Bibles, especially of different styles and adaptations. And I say that to say this. As a soldier, we're taught one thing: to know your opponents, right? To know your enemy. And I'm not saying that Bibles are your enemy, but there are certain translations that are wrong or are abbreviated in a certain way that makes them not viable. There's also certain Bibles that people will die for and say that they're the only Bible out there that is actually God breathed, which, is not necessarily true. So, reading different versions, different styles, isn't bad. It's illuminating. And the newest one that I acquired is this. The Complete Jewish Bible. It is not in Hebrew, mind you. Now, there are Hebrew words in here. A lot of them. And most of the names, the way that they're worded, the way that they've been written down, is not the way that we see them today or pronounced. Right? Now, this is a complete Genesis to Revelations Bible. Okay? But all from Hebrew text. No Greek or anything of that nature. Just the Hebrew text translated into English by David H. Stern. Okay? Now, another difference between this and most other Bibles, the Torah, which is the first 5 books for the Jewish population, is complete, intact, the way that we see it today. Okay? The first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, blah, blah, blah. Right? After that, all the other books in the Old Testament are done in alphabetical order. Okay? They're not done in an order that we would normally see it. Okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. You would think that there would be, but if you think about it, the book of Job is written and put in the Bible several books after Genesis, and yet the actual timeline of Job is between Genesis 11, which we're going to read today, and Genesis 12. So, the order in how the books are put in is not important. Only that they're accurate and that they're together. Okay? Now, I'm going to read from this, and like I said, there are going to be names in here that you're going to be like, wait a second, that's not what my Bible says. True. But you got to understand that it's going to come from a Hebrew text. Right? So, like, Abraham is not going to sound like Abraham. Or Abram at this point. Okay? It's not going to sound like that. It's going to sound different. But you'll be able to still... You will still be able to figure out who I'm talking about, especially if you're reading from your own. Okay? Your translation. Okay, so let's start. Chapter 11. The whole earth used the same language, the same words. It came about that as they traveled from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and lived there. They said to one another, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them in the fire." So they had bricks for building stone, and clay for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city with a tower that has its top reaching up into heaven, so that we can make a name for ourselves and not be scattered all over the earth." Adonai came down to see the city and the tower of the people were building. Nope, sorry. Adonai came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. Sorry. Adonai said, "Look, the people are united. They all have a single language, and see what they're starting to do. At this rate, nothing they set out to accomplish will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down and confuse their language so that they won't understand each other's speech." So from there, Adonai scattered them all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. For this reason, it is called Bavel. Okay? And just so you have an idea, it is spelled in here Bavel. I know we say Babel, but Bavel is how it's pronounced for this. Bavel means confusion, because there Adonai confused the language of the whole earth, and from there Adonai scattered them all over the earth. I added in the whole definition of confusion. Okay. Here is the genealogy of Shem. Shem was 100 years old when he fathered Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. After Arpachshad was born, Shem lived another 500 years and had sons and daughters. Arpachshad lived for 35 years and fathered Shelach. After Shelach was born, Arpachshad lived another 403 years and had sons and daughters. Shelach lived 30 years and fathered Ever. After Ever was born, Shelach lived another 403 years and had sons and daughters. Ever lived 34 years and fathered Peleg. After Peleg was born, Ever lived another 430 years and had sons and daughters. Peleg lived 30 years and fathered Reu. After Reu was born, Peleg lived another 209 years and had sons and daughters. Reu lived 32 years and fathered Sharuk. After Sharuk was born, Reu lived another 207 years and had sons and daughters. Reu lived 30 years and fathered Nachor. After Nachor was born, Sharug lived another 200 years and had sons and daughters. Nachor lived 29 years and fathered Terach. After Terach was born, Nachor lived another 119 years and had sons and daughters. Terach lived 70 years and fathered Avram. Yes, that is Abram, but it's spelled here Avram. Nachor and Haran. Here is the genealogy of Terach. Terach fathered Avram, Nachor, and Haran. And Haran fathered Lot. Haran died before his father Terach in the land where he was born, in Ur of the Kasdim. Then Avram and Nachor took wives for themselves. The name of Avram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nachor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran. He was the father of Milcah and of Yishka. Sarah was barren. She had no children. Terach took his son Avram, his son Haran's son Lot, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law. His son Avram's wife, and they left Ur of the Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they stayed there. Terach lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. Okay. That was a little complicated, but, ancient names kind of are a little bit harder to say. It's not like when you're saying, Mark or David, Okay, so I'm going to go through my books here, and I'm going to read what they say about the chapters. Okay. Now I'm going to start with this one. Okay. It says, verse 1 communicates a picture of the comprehensive unity of humanity for that time. Both the instruction and conclusion of the Tower of Babel account have the words the whole earth. See verse 9. Taken as it is stated, this means the entire population on earth. Yet, there are some Bible teachers who understand this expression to be a figure of speech that refers only to the people in the land of Mesopotamia. In Hebrew, the expression can mean in all of a particular land or in the whole world. However, given the account's connection to the table of nations, which goes beyond a particular region and refers to every nation in chapter 10, it is best to understand Goodness, sorry. The whole earth, as regarding to all the inhabitants of the world. Moses' placement of the whole world at the beginning of the narrative denotes the stark contrast from what the global situation had become at its conclusion. Moses highlighted the fact that the whole earth was one language and of one speech. One language, one speech. Kind of the same thing. Anyways, using both language and speech depends. Man. Oh, so sorry. It deepens the description of their unity. It may appear that the two words are basically synonymous, but there is an important distinction between them. Today, various groups of people may speak the same language, but have different accents and use diverse expressions to communicate with one another. For example, people in England and the United States both speak English, but there are differences in their vocabularies and way of expression. This was not so with these ancient people. They not only spoke the same language, but also communicated with one another in the same way. Okay. Okay. Goodness gracious. I am tired. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because there's like 15 paragraphs for each individual verse. And I don't want you to be, having to listen to this for the next 15 hours. The next book I'm going to look through is this one. Okay. The account of the Tower of Babel, Genesis 11, 1 through 9, falls strategically between two genealogies found in Genesis 10 and Genesis 11, verses 10 through 32. The writer mentions the line from Shem through Joktan at the founding of the city of Babylon and the formation of a strong, active community. The other line, through Peleg, resulted in the birth of Abraham, the person who willingly followed God's call. Okay. I am still alive. Just very tired. Okay. God's called to leave his community to depart for a new land. As future Israelites recounted Genesis 11 and its genealogy, they recalled that the people with whom they had conflicts and wars were distant cousins, all related to them through Noah, even as future Israelites sought holiness, as well as separation from those who embraced idolatry. Goodness. They acknowledged kinship to those who surrounded them. They remembered they should care for and reach out to them with God's commandments. In like manner, we today, worlds apart from Noah's children, continue to have responsibility for all people groups because Christ did for all, and the love of Christ compels us we are to love them as we have been loved. Okay. Now we're going to go through my Bible's commentary through which will have MacArthur's words. Okay, John MacArthur. Okay. God, who made man as the one creature with whom he could speak, was to take the gift of language and use it to divide the race for the apostate worship at Babel, indicated that man had turned against God in pride. God had restated his commission for man to be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth. It was in the course of spreading out that the events of this account occurred. While dispersing a portion of the post-flood group under the leading of the powerful Nimrod, decided to stop and establish a city as a monument to their pride and for their reputation. The tower, even though it was a part of the plan, was not the singular act of rebellion. Humans' pride was which led these people to defy God. They were refusing to move on, scattering to fill the earth as they had been instructed. In fact, this was Nimrod's and the people's effort to disobey the command of God in 9 verse 1, and thus defeat the council of heaven. They had to make bricks since there were few stones on the plains. Okay. Okay. Sorry about all that yawning. Now, chapter 11 comes in two parts. Right. First, we see the Tower of Babel. And then we see, again, the genealogy. What's the significance? Well, the Tower of Babel was important to talk about because now we know why we have different languages. Right? Which is fine to have a different language. We were supposed to go out and spread the word. We were supposed to go out and spread amongst the world to populate the entire world. And these guys decided, you know what? I think it's better if we don't. Let's just all hang out here. Right? Now, why would they do that? Maybe because of a ruler. Maybe a certain person, Nimrod, decided that he wanted to have full control over everyone. They're all his family, right? So why would he want to have control over his own family? Makes no sense. Unless, of course, you're power hungry. Greedy beyond all measure. They keep using the word pride. And I do see pride, but I also see greed. Okay. Now, the second part, the genealogy part. They break it down because they're trying to introduce you to the next chapter, right? Abram. Not Abraham yet, just Abram. Sarai. And all the others, right? There's even a mention of Lot in those verses. But why isn't there more of an elaboration on the Tower of Babel? Well, what was the important part? Greed was going on. Pride, greed, all that stuff. And then God turned to the council, also known as the Trinity, and he was like, we have got to stop this. Which they do. They confuse the languages. They make it to where not one person has the same language. Right? No, I don't know about you, but if I have a language barrier with somebody, I'm not going to stop doing my job. I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing and move on with life. Now, can something bad happen? Of course. Can two people miscommunicate? End up in the same location, not knowing what the other is doing? Of course. But I would have still kept working. I mean, it was the job, right? But the confusion caused everybody to just kind of disperse. Good thing, right? But what I want us to take away from this is this little bit of information here. We, as a people, we don't have the power to go out and do whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want. We have the power that's given to us by God Himself. And in those instances, when we do the things that we want to do, how we want to do it, and so on and so forth, are we truly doing it because, we feel that God's calling us to, or are we doing it because we don't care about God, we just want to do it? That is the story of the Tower of Babel. They knew who God was, yet they actively defied Him because they wanted something for themselves. They wanted to prove that they could do something, and they didn't need God's approval. They didn't need God to do anything. And in the process, they failed. As to the genealogy stuff, I want you to take away this. This line, this genealogy line, is going to lead directly into Christ. That's the importance of this genealogy. That is the importance of knowing, these people's names. Solely for the fact of knowing whose line Jesus was going to be born from. That's it. But, be that as it is, that line is only important because God chose those people, and those people did right in the eyes of God. At least that's how I see it. Now, I hope you enjoyed this. I know it was kind of choppy. I know I yawned a lot. And I know that reading from a different text was a little bit more different. But I really do hope that you did enjoy it. Now, I'm not going to leave any text up. I'm going to let you listen if you want to listen, or read from your own Bible if you want to read from it. And the only reason why I'm not doing it this time also is mostly because I've yawned like 20 times already. So, while it may be daytime, I think I need to take a nap. Alright. Love you all. You all have a blessed day. Don't have too much fun without me.